I have lived in this house for 31 years, and it took my daughter 11 minutes to throw me out of it. I remember counting. I don't know why, maybe because counting kept me from screaming. 11 minutes from the moment the mover's truck doors slammed shut in my driveway to the moment I was standing on the sidewalk in Kailua with a suitcase I hadn't even packed myself, watching my son-in-law lock the door to a house with my name still on the mailbox. This isn't happening. Not like this. Not after everything. My name is Douglas Hale. I'm 68 years old. I built a boutique hotel empire out of a single run-down beach bungalow on Oahu back when nobody believed a divorced man raising 2 kids alone with a maxed-out credit card and a construction loan he had no business qualifying for could turn salt water and sun into something worth $15 million. I did it anyway. And 3 hours ago, my own daughter stood in the foyer of the house I built, the house where I rocked her to sleep as a baby, and told me I wasn't welcome in it anymore. Her husband said it louder. "You belong in a nursing home, Douglas, not a palace." He was smiling when he said it. That's the part I can't shake. Not angry. Amused. I smiled back. I nodded. And something inside me went very, very quiet. If that landed the way I think it did, a father locked out of his own home by his own daughter, then you already know this one's going to hurt. Hit subscribe and drop a like before we go back in, because I promise you, what's coming is worse than what you just read. 3 months earlier, none of this would have seemed possible. 3 months earlier, I was standing on the lanai of that same house, watching the sun drop into the Pacific behind Kailua Bay, holding a glass of wine and half listening to Colin talk about market positioning, like he'd built anything in his life besides a LinkedIn profile. Colin Whitmore married my daughter Claire 6 years ago. Good teeth, better tailoring. A family name that used to mean something back in Connecticut before the money ran out 2 generations ago. He never worked a real job a day I knew him. He didn't need to. He married into one. I used to tell myself I was being unfair to him. Give him time. Give him a chance. Claire loves him. That has to count for something. I gave him 6 years. It started small the way these things always do. A comment here. A joke there. "Douglas, are you sure you locked the office? You've been forgetting things lately." I hadn't forgotten anything. But he said it in front of Claire enough times that I started to see the doubt creep into her eyes when she looked at me. Then it was the paperwork. "For tax purposes," Colin explained, sliding a folder across the kitchen table one humid evening in March. "You transfer the Kailua property into a trust under Claire's name. Protects it. Protects you. It's just smart estate planning, Douglas." He'd recommended the lawyer himself, a young associate named Patrick Reyes who worked out of a glass office in Honolulu and who, I'd learned far too late, golfed with Colin every Thursday at the YLA Club. Something about this feels wrong. I remember thinking it. I remember the exact moment, sitting at that table, my pen hovering an inch above the signature line. Read it again. Read every page. I read it twice. It looked clean. It looked like every trust document I'd signed a dozen times running my company. I trusted my own eyes. I trusted my daughter more. I signed. The weeks after that, Colin started showing up at my hotel offices in the mornings. Just to help. Just to learn the business, since one day it'll be Claire's. He'd sit in on calls with my property managers. He'd ask my accountant, Nathan Reeves, who'd worked for me for 19 years, pointed little questions about liquidity and succession planning. I noticed Nathan getting quieter around me. I noticed the way he wouldn't quite meet my eyes in meetings anymore. They're building something. I don't know what yet, but they're building it. I told myself I was being paranoid, an old man seeing conspiracies in his son-in-law's ambition. Claire had always been softer than me, more trusting, more eager to smooth things over than fight them. She'd never once, in 32 years, raised her voice at me. That should have told me something too. That the version of Claire standing in my foyer 3 hours ago, cold-eyed, arms crossed, refusing to look at me while her husband did the talking, wasn't a Claire I recognized. Someone had built her, piece by piece, the same patient way Colin had built his case against me. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were the day I met my old business partner, Everett Cho, for coffee at a shop 2 blocks from the marina, a ritual we'd kept since 1994, since the two of us renovated that first bungalow with our own hands, and a loan nobody thought we'd pay back. I was gone 3 hours. When I came home, there was a black SUV in my driveway I didn't recognize, and a man in a gray suit standing on my own front porch holding a clipboard. "Mr. Hale," he said, like he already knew how this was going to go, "I have some documents I need you to review." Behind him, through the open front door, I could see Claire in the living room. Boxes. My things, my late wife's china, the photographs off the hallway wall, my own father's old sailing trophies, already packed into cardboard boxes stacked by the door. "Claire?" My voice came out smaller than I wanted it to. "What is this?" She wouldn't look at me. Colin stepped into the doorway behind her instead, arms crossed, that same easy smile on his face he wore at every family dinner, every holiday, every moment he'd spent 6 years learning to perform. "Douglas," he said, gentle as a knife, "we need to talk about what's best for you." Best for me. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Not because it was funny, because it was the exact sentence I'd heard my own mother's siblings use 40 years ago, right before they put her somewhere she didn't want to go and took what was left of her house. The man with the clipboard cleared his throat. "Mr. Hale, per the trust agreement and following the competency evaluation conducted last month by Dr. Ellis." "What competency evaluation?" Colin's smile didn't move. "You remember, Douglas, the wellness check. Dr. Ellis came by while you were at the hotel." I did not remember any wellness check. I remembered a man in a golf polo who'd shown up unannounced one Thursday afternoon, asking me strange, simple questions. "What day is it? Can you count backward from 100? Do you know where you are?" While Colin sat in the corner of my own study, taking notes on his phone. They filmed it. They used it. Oh God, they used it. "This is my house," I said. My voice was steadier than I felt. "I built this house." "It's Claire's house now," Colin said. "The trust made sure of that, and I think you know, deep down, that a man your age alone in a property this size, it isn't safe, it isn't responsible. We love you too much to let you stay here." Behind him, for one half second, Claire's eyes finally lifted to mine. And in that half second, I saw something underneath the coldness. Something that looked almost like an apology, buried so deep she didn't know how to reach it anymore. Then Colin put his hand on her shoulder, and it was gone. "You belong in a nursing home, Douglas," he said, louder now, loud enough for the movers unloading boxes behind him to hear it too. "Not a palace." I looked at my daughter's husband. I looked at the house that held 31 years of my life. I looked at the boxes with my late wife's china stacked carelessly on the porch like garbage waiting for pickup. And I smiled. I nodded. "Of course," I said softly. "Whatever you think is best." Colin's grin widened. He thought he'd won. He thought an old man had just folded without a fight. He has no idea what I built before he was even born. He has no idea what I'm capable of when someone I love hands me a reason. I walked to the sidewalk. I didn't look back at the house. I pulled out my phone and I made one call, not to a lawyer, not to my daughter, not to anyone who could talk me down. I called Everett Cho. "Ev," I said, watching the moving truck doors close on 31 years of my life, "I need you to open the Kalama file, the one we buried in 1994. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Douglas," Everett said slowly, "are you sure? Once we open that, there's no closing it again." I watched Colin through the front window, laughing with Claire, already rearranging my furniture like he'd earned it. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I said. "Let's begin." The first night in the rental unit on Kailua Road, I didn't sleep. I sat on a mattress I'd bought that afternoon from a furniture warehouse in Kaneohe, still wrapped in plastic, no frame, no headboard, just a slab of foam on a stranger's floor, and I stared at the ceiling fan turning slow circles above me until the sky outside the window went from black to gray to gold. 31 years. 31 years, and they packed my life into 40 boxes in 11 minutes. I want to be honest with you, because I promised myself I'd tell this story straight, even the parts that don't make me look strong. Somewhere around 3 in the morning, I cried. Not quiet tears either. The kind that come up from somewhere old, somewhere you thought you'd buried. I cried for my late wife, Margaret, who didn't live to see what her son-in-law did with the house she picked out the wallpaper for. I cried for the version of Claire who used to fall asleep on my chest during Hawaiian Airlines flights when she was 6 years old, gripping my shirt like the world might end if she let go. Where did that girl go? What did he do to her? By sunrise, the crying had stopped. Something harder had taken its place. I've felt that shift exactly twice before in my life. Once when Margaret died, and once 31 years ago when a bank in Honolulu told a broke single father he'd never qualify for a construction loan, and I walked out of that office and got the money anyway, from a man nobody trusted, at an interest rate that should have ruined me. I am not a man who stays on the floor. I never have been. Colin Whitmore was about to learn that the hard way. Everett Cho met me the next morning at a diner in Kaneohe, the kind of place with vinyl booths and a coffee pot that never stops moving. He looked older than I remembered. We both did. But his eyes were the same eyes that used to stare down bank loan officers with me back when we were two idiots with a sledgehammer and a dream. "You look like hell," he said, sliding into the booth across from me. "I feel like hell." "Good. Feel it today. Tomorrow we work." He pulled a thick manila folder out of his bag and set it on the table between us, like it was something that might go off. Here's what almost nobody knew, not even my own accountant Nathan Reeves, who'd been quietly turned by Colin over these last few months. Back in 1994, when Everett and I bought that first bungalow, we didn't buy it in my name. We bought it through a holding company we'd formed together, Kalama Holdings, a company so old and so buried in paperwork that most people, including my own family, had forgotten it still existed. Every property I acquired after that first one, I ran through Kalama for the underlying land trust, even after I built my name into the biggest boutique hotel brand on the windward side. The buildings, the operating businesses, the day-to-day, those went into newer, cleaner entities with my name on them. But the land, the actual dirt beneath every property I owned, including the house on the bluff Colin now thought he controlled, that never left Kalama. Colin's lawyer, young Patrick Reyes, was sharp enough to draft a trust that stripped my name off the house's operating deed. Not sharp enough to check who actually held the ground lease underneath it. He built his palace on my land, and he doesn't even know it. He's been paying property taxes to the county under Claire's name for 2 years, Everett said, tapping the folder. But the ground lease with Kalama expires for renewal review in 90 days, and Kalama's the only entity with the legal standing to renew or refuse. I felt something in my chest that I hadn't felt in 3 months. Not rage, something colder and steadier than rage. 90 days, I repeated. 90 days, Everett said. Plenty of time if you're willing to do this right instead of fast. Right instead of fast. He's telling me not to burn it all down in one night. He's telling me to build something instead. He was right. Fast revenge is what an angry man does. What I wanted, what I needed, was something that would take Colin apart piece by piece, the exact way he'd taken me apart. Patient, methodical, undeniable. Over the next 6 weeks, I stopped being a grieving old man and became something Colin never once considered when he had me evaluated by a golf buddy with a medical license. I became invisible. I let it be known around the island, quietly through the right people at the right dinners, that Douglas Hale had in fact declined, that the stress of losing the house had accelerated something. I let Colin believe every word of it, because a man who believes he's already won stops watching his back. Meanwhile, I moved. Nathan Reeves came to see me first. I'd known him 19 years, long enough to recognize guilt on a man's face, even when he's trying to hide it behind a golf tan. He sat in my rental unit, refusing coffee, wringing his hands. "Colin came to me with the trust paperwork 8 months ago," he admitted. "Told me it was your idea. Told me you wanted him more involved for succession planning. I should have called you directly. I should have. Douglas, I'm sorry." He's telling the truth. I can hear it. He's ashamed, not scheming. I watched him for a long moment before I answered. "You're going to help me fix it," I said. "Or you're going to explain to the state licensing board Why you certified financial statements for a trust you never verified with the actual owner. Nathan's face went white. Then he nodded. By week 4, I had Nathan quietly pulling every financial record Colin had touched in the last 2 years. Invoices, transfers, the boutique hotel Colin's family had been bleeding dry back in Connecticut, buried under debt nobody in his family wanted to admit existed. That's when I learned the second secret. Colin wasn't just after my house. His parents' inn on the Connecticut shoreline, the one that gave the Whitmore name its last shred of old money credibility, was 6 months from foreclosure. Colin had married into money because his own family's money was already gone, and he needed my house, my name, my empire, to keep the lie alive for one more generation. That's why he needed it to look natural. That's why he needed a competency hearing, instead of just asking me for help. Because he knew I'd have said no. I felt something shift in me reading those documents at 2 a.m. at my kitchen table. Not sympathy for Colin, never that, but something close to understanding. Desperate men do desperate things. And desperate men, who are also cruel, do the kind of things Colin had done to me. I started buying his family's debt. Quietly. Through a shell entity even Everett's lawyer set up fresh, clean, untraceable back to Hale or Kalama on any casual search. Piece by piece, mortgage note by mortgage note, I became the single largest creditor holding paper on the Whitmore family inn. The hardest part wasn't the business. The hardest part was Claire. She reached out once, in week 5. A text message, nothing more. Dad, are you okay? I've been thinking about you. I stared at that message for 11 minutes. The same 11 minutes it took to lose my house, before I typed back 3 words. I'm fine, sweetheart. I didn't tell her where I was living. I didn't tell her what I'd found. Because here's the truth I had to sit with. Alone, in that rental unit with the ceiling fan turning slow circles, I didn't yet know if my daughter was a victim in this or an accomplice. And until I knew which, I couldn't risk giving Colin a single thread to pull. Is she trapped? Or did she choose this? God, please let her be trapped. I need to stop right here for a second, because what I found in week 7 changed everything that came after it, and I'm still not sure how I sat across from my own daughter 3 days later and didn't say a word about it. Drop a comment and tell me, if you found proof your child had known the truth the whole time, would you confront them immediately, or would you wait until you had everything you needed first? I want to know where you'd draw that line. Week 7. Nathan came to me with a single email, forwarded from Colin's business account to Claire's personal one, dated 4 months before the competency hearing. Baby, I know this is hard, but your father's not going to give us what we need any other way. Dr. Ellis owes me a favor. It won't hurt him. He won't even remember the visit clearly enough to fight it. This is the only way we save the inn and get you what should already be yours. Below it, 1 line from Claire. 4 words that I read 40 times that night, trying to find another meaning in them and never finding one. Okay, do what's necessary. I sat at that kitchen table until the sun came up a second time in that apartment, and I understood, finally, completely, that this wasn't only Colin's betrayal. My daughter had known. My daughter had agreed. She chose the inn. She chose him over me. I thought the grief would break me all over again. Instead, something in me went perfectly, terribly calm. I picked up my phone and called Everett. The ground lease review, I said. Move it up. I want the renewal hearing filed by the end of the month, not in 90 days. Douglas, that's going to draw attention. Are you sure you want to move that fast? I looked out the window at the gray dawn breaking over Kailua Bay, the same bay I used to watch from my own lanai, before a man who married my daughter for a lifeline decided an old man's palace was easier to take than to earn. I'm done being patient, Ev, I said. 3 moving trucks are going to pull up to that house one more time. Only this time, I'm the one deciding what's inside them. There was a pause on the line. Understood, Everett said quietly. I'll start making calls. I hung up the phone, and for the first time in 7 weeks, I slept a full night through. The morning the trucks came, Kailua smelled like rain that hadn't fallen yet. I stood across the street from the house, my house, though the deed still said otherwise for another 6 hours, in a rental car with tinted windows, watching Colin direct movers around the driveway like a man staging a photo shoot for a magazine that would never run the story he thought he was building. 3 trucks. Just like he'd promised his parents on the phone call Nathan had helped me trace 2 weeks earlier. The one where Colin told his mother and father, "We're finally bringing you home. Pack whatever you want. This place has room for all of us." His parents' inn on the Connecticut shoreline had gone into foreclosure 11 days earlier. I know, because I signed the order myself. He thought this house was his soft landing. He thought he'd traded one legacy for another. He has no idea whose ground he's standing on. Claire's car pulled up behind the last truck. She stepped out slowly, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky, and stood at the edge of the driveway with her arms wrapped around herself the way she used to as a little girl when she knew she'd done something wrong and was waiting to be caught. Part of me wants to walk over there right now. Part of me wants to ask her why. But I already know why. I read it in her own words. I watched Colin's parents climb out of a rental SUV, a tired-looking couple in their 70s, the mother clutching a small dog, the father squinting up at the house like a man trying to convince himself it was really his. At 10:14 a.m., the county vehicles arrived. Not one car. 4. Colin noticed them before Claire did. I watched his shoulders go rigid, watched him take 2 steps toward the street with the practiced, easy smile he always wore starting to falter at the edges. The first man out of the lead car wasn't in a suit. He wore a windbreaker with the county clerk's office logo stitched over the pocket, and he was already holding paperwork before his feet hit the driveway. "Colin Whitmore?" He called out. "That's me. Can I help you?" "I'm here regarding the ground lease on this property, held under Kalama Holdings. The lease renewal review concluded yesterday. I need to speak with whoever's currently occupying the residence." I watched confusion cross Colin's face. Real confusion. The kind you can't fake, because he had genuinely never heard the words Kalama Holdings in his life. "There's some mistake," Colin said, laughing the way rich men laugh when they think a clerical error is beneath them. "This property belongs to my wife. It's all documented. Trust transfer 18 months ago." "The residence is documented, sir. The land underneath it isn't. This house sits on a ground lease originating in 1994, held in perpetuity by Kalama Holdings, LLC, subject to periodic renewal review. That review concluded that the lease will not be renewed to the current sub-lessee, effective today." There it is. I got out of the car. I didn't rush. I walked across that street the same unhurried way I used to walk hotel floors during my morning inspections. 30 years of ownership in every step, and Colin's face went from confusion to disbelief to something close to fear the second he saw me coming. "Douglas," he said. My name came out of his mouth like a question this time, not an insult, not a joke about nursing homes, just fear, dressed up as surprise. What is this?" "This," I said, "is Kalama Holdings, founded 1994. My name's on the founding documents, Colin, right alongside Everett Cho's. Every property I've owned since then, the buildings changed hands, the businesses changed names, but the land never left Kalama. Not once. Not even when you had your golf buddy tell a room full of people I couldn't remember what day it was." Behind him, I saw Claire's hand fly to her mouth. "You can't do this," Colin said, his voice cracking now, the performance finally, completely gone. "This is our home. My parents just lost—" "Your parents lost their inn 11 days ago," I said, "to a creditor who bought up every note against it over the last 6 weeks. Would you like to guess who that creditor is?" I watched it land. I watched the exact moment Colin understood. Not just that he'd lost the house, but that the entire safety net he'd built by destroying mine had been quietly dismantled underneath him for weeks, while he stood in that driveway celebrating. The keys slipped out of his hand and hit the pavement. He didn't bend down to pick them up. His mother started crying first, a small, broken sound, the dog in her arms whining along with her. His father just stood there, staring at the house he'd been promised 20 minutes earlier, saying nothing at all. This is where it's supposed to feel good. This is the part I imagined for 7 weeks, lying awake in that rental with the ceiling fan turning. Why doesn't it feel good? Claire walked toward me slowly, sunglasses off now, her eyes red-rimmed and raw. Dad, just that. My name. The way she used to say it when she was small and scared of the dark. I looked at my daughter, and for one long moment I let myself remember every version of her. The 6-year-old asleep on my chest on the flight home from the mainland, the 16-year-old crying in my arms after her mother's funeral, the woman standing in my foyer 3 months ago telling a stranger with a clipboard to pack my life into boxes. I read the email, Claire, I said quietly. Just for her. The one where you told him to do it. Okay, do what's necessary. Your words. Her face crumpled. Dad, I didn't understand what he meant. I swear to God, I thought he meant paperwork, legal stuff. I didn't know about the doctor. I didn't know he was going to say those things to you. I didn't know. Is that true? Or is that what she needs to believe about herself now? I wanted so badly to believe her. That's the part nobody tells you about revenge. That even standing in the wreckage of the man who deserved it, your heart still goes looking for the one person you can't stop loving, hoping there's a version of the story where she's still innocent. I didn't have an answer for her. Not that day. You have a choice in front of you right now, I told her instead. You can stand in that driveway with him and lose everything alongside a man who used you to get to me, or you can come with me and we can find out, slowly, honestly, with lawyers and truth instead of secrets, whether there's anything left between us worth saving. She looked back at Colin, who was staring at the ground where the keys had fallen, his parents crying behind him, 3 empty moving trucks idling uselessly in the driveway of a house none of them would ever set foot inside. Then she looked at me, and she walked toward her car, alone. For a moment my chest went tight with fear that she was leaving, really leaving, choosing him even now, even after everything. But she didn't get in the driver's seat. She opened the passenger door instead and stood there, waiting, watching me. Can I ride with you? She asked. I don't think I can be here anymore. It's not forgiveness. Not yet. It's not even close. But it's a door, and she's the one who opened it. The legal fallout took another 4 months to fully settle. Colin was charged with elder fraud and conspiracy to commit fraud in the 3rd degree, along with Dr. Marcus Ellis, whose medical license was suspended pending a state board investigation into the falsified competency evaluation. Patrick Reyes, the young lawyer who drafted the original trust, lost his position at his firm and is currently under review by the Hawaii Bar Association. Colin's parents moved into a small rental outside Honolulu. I never heard from them directly, though Nathan told me once that his mother had tried quietly to send a letter of apology that I never opened. Some things don't need to be read to be forgiven, and some things need more than a letter before they can be. Claire and I are still rebuilding. Slowly. Honestly. She lives in a small condo not far from where I first rented that apartment, with the mattress on the floor, and every Tuesday, without fail, she meets me for coffee at the same shop where Everett and I sat the morning I decided to fight back. We don't talk about the trust. We don't talk about Colin. We talk about her mother sometimes, and about the little girl who used to fall asleep on my chest on flights home, and about whether trust, once broken all the way down to the ground, can ever really be rebuilt from nothing. I moved back into the house on the bluff in October. I stood on the lanai the first night, the same spot where Colin once stood telling me about market positioning, and I watched the sun go down into the Pacific the way it always has, the way it always will, whether or not the people watching it deserve to be standing there. 31 years to build it, 11 minutes to lose it, 7 weeks to take it back. I still keep the folder from Kalama Holdings in my desk drawer, not because I need it anymore, but because I never want to forget what it cost me to remember who I really am. If this story stayed with you, that moment the keys hit the pavement, that single line in Claire's email, that door she opened when she chose to ride home with me instead of staying in that driveway, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment and tell me what moment across all 3 parts hit you the hardest. And where in the world are you watching from? I read every single one. Thank you for being here. There is so much more coming, and you do not want to miss it.